We will get started, and we have one board member not here yet who will join us if and when she gets here. The August 21, 2024 meeting of the Jackson County Library District Board is called to order. Can we please have a roll call
Absolutely. Do we have present Vicky Brown,
here?
Susan Kiefer?
Yeah. Here.
Marta Terence?
Here.
Marissa Shepherd? And Kevin Keaton.
Great, thank you. Would ask one welcome to guests and staff that are with us and guests and staff that are with us virtually. Next, I would ask you to join me in thought as I read the JCLS land acknowledgement. Jackson County Library Services acknowledges that its libraries are located within the traditional lands of the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians and the Modoc Nation, as well as the Shasta, Takelma, and Lakawa people, whose descendants are now identified as members of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We take this moment to recognize the indigenous peoples whose traditional lands are where residents of Jackson County live today. JCLS is committed to fostering understanding, deep respect, and honor for indigenous people, and we encourage you to learn more about the land you reside on. For more information, go to jcls.org/land. Do we have any introductions?
I do not today.
Okay. Do we have any proclamations that I'm aware of?
No proclamations.
Okay. So any additions or requests to move something from the consent agenda to another part of the agenda?
I just noticed that one error in the minutes for the work session. 25, 24.
We have noted that, so we can review.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
One explanation.
You got your off the hook for your work, didn't you? I'll move approval of the consent agenda. A second.
Great, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So next we are moving,
One moment.
oh, okay.
There are resolutions which require a roll call vote.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, that's right.
So do I need to read the title of the resolution? And
Yes, please.
okay. So resolution 2025-01 to authorize checking account designated personnel and signers. So
Move to approve?
Roll call vote.
Okay, sorry.
So that shouldn't be on the consent agenda.
It can be under the consent agenda. They just require a roll call vote.
Okay.
Yeah. I need to mark down what they are. Forgive
that's fine.
for one moment
Problem.
while I write down. So. The resolution 2025-01. Vicky Brown,
Yes,
this is with noting for the minutes that Director Kiefer has moved and Director Terency has seconded. Director Kiefer?
Yeah.
Director Keating,
Yes.
Director Shepherd. Absent. Just in case she was one of the folks who had joined us, and Director Terency.
resolution 2025-02 to authorize LGIP account designated personnel and signers.
And again, with the Director Kiefer having moved, Director Terency having seconded, Director Brown,
Yes,
Director Kiefer,
Yes.
Director Keating,
Yes.
Director Shepherd. And Director Terrence. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us. Okay.
You grab the sheets.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
I know it's a long way around here.
okay.
Yeah.
So the next portion of the agenda is oral requests and communications from the audience, and we have an in-person audience and a virtual audience. Since it's a little bit more challenging for the virtual audience, raising your hand on the screen if you know how to do that or can figure out how to do that. And we will call on you to speak. People in the room, we will call on you directly. Anyway, comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and shall be limited to comments on agenda items or on agenda items that do not otherwise provide for public comment. The board will listen to all comments, but will not respond during the meeting. I'm seeing a hand up there, but we'll kind of keep an eye out.
I will monitor the Zoom audience and can call on folks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Cal Bays.
I come right here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Can I, before we get started, can I pass out a few things and then we can start? Does that work?
Okay.
There's 6 copies of the board carried. I have another one here, it's also got 6 copies on it. You can tell me when I'm ready.
Ready to go?
Okay, so here I am again. I'm getting down the art of speaking in 3 minutes, right? So my name is Cal Bays and I work here at the library. I'm also a patron. So I'm here today as a patron. And I have a couple of things here. One is concerning and another one's a couple of exciting messages. So where I'd like to start here is, as most of you know, I've come to several of these board meetings in the past, and I'm here to endorse once again reactivating our waterfall feature. But as life is and things that happen, my last meeting I was here was July 15th. And 4 days after that, on July 19th, as an employee here, I received a personal improvement plan. And this is one of these features that just before they want to dismiss me, they give an improvement plan. And I'm bringing this up because I'm concerned about this. And this personal improvement plan is a direct result of my coming here to the board and speaking. And its purpose is to silence me. And so this is really serious. And when I mention this to my family, they're doing things like, that's disturbing. And, you know, I can't believe that they're doing this and things like this. And so this personal improvement plan is fraught with disinformation. By disinformation, I'm talking about it's intended to mislead. And it's misleading because the information in it I wrote a rebuttal to everything because so many things were wrong. An example was the waterfall feature that I collected the signatures last time. They said I did it wrong. I said they didn't research it because I did notify security that I would be 25 feet away from the front door, out by the curb, under the trees, because it's so hot, collecting my survey. That's how it's done, and that's correct. That's just one example. But I would really like you to take this into consideration, because I think anybody should be able to come here with different perspectives and be able to speak. I'm going to move on from there. The next thing I want to talk about is, I don't know if you're aware, but the city of Medford has a survey going on out there, and it's about the next 20 years of what people who work or live here would like to see in Medford. And in this, I want to bring up is that the fact that goal number 3 in this survey says, goal number 3 speaks of unique public art. That's what the waterfall feature is that they're looking for in how to improve the downtown as having unique.
That's time.
That's time. Wow. Would you guys grant me a minute?
I think,
And-
we have a lot of people here,
Okay.
so unfortunately,
Okay,
thank you for your
thank you.
time.
For the record, Director Shepherd joined at 4:13 p.m.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. For the room.
But that was a biggie down. Okay, so Carrie Francis. That's me. Okay. You're up.
Well, I'm gonna be taking more interest in my library. I've been a patron of this particular library for almost 30 years. Okay, and there's no other library like this one. And we've got all the branches, but like this one in the system, and the ambiance, the plants. And it's just such a wonderful library. I just wanted to say that, and everything is beautiful inside and out, and the plant life, I'm a gardener, the plant life really helps. And I would also like to know what can be done for the waterfall, and it would be wonderful to see it working again with the flowers out there, And I've been talking to a lot of patrons. I'm doing surveys and helping people into attending more board meetings. Anyhow, I'm taking more of an active interest in our library. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Carrie Christie.
So I was wondering if I could read her letter. She wasn't able to get here, but she has a letter, and I would just read her letter in probably less than 3 minutes. Is that okay with the board?
Okay, it's okay with me.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything that prohibits that.
Okay. I'll begin. So Carrie Christie is a patron of the library, and she first came here when she was pregnant. And I call her son that she had, a library baby, and she's been coming ever since. She writes, regarding the waterfall feature at the Medford Library entrance, my young son and I have both enjoyed seeing it and watching it over the years that we have come to the library. I've been a member for several years. My son is now 8.5 years old. And during his toddler years, especially, he loved to run up and touch the water during his sensory development. Seeing something like this in the middle of downtown is very refreshing and gives the library an artistic vibe. Water brings people a feeling of relaxation and peacefulness. I would love to have the water turned back on for all to experience and enjoy. Please consider this request. Thank you for your consideration and time. Carrie Christie.
Thank you.
Can you read that name?
I can take care of it.
I'm kind of struggling.
GOBER, on that.
Maybe someone remembers who was there.
Was that one? Linda?
Linda? Oh,
What's your last
Can't
name?
read my handwriting.
well, actually, no. To be perfectly honest.
Good afternoon, evening. I'm just here as a patron. I've only been coming here 6 years, but I love the way this library and the green. It just makes an atmosphere that is so beautiful. And it is different than a lot of other libraries. And regarding the sculpture, as an artist, I would not be happy with you at all by turning off half of my work. That's like spray painting and painting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, Kayla.
And then I have some copies that everybody can take.
In the version of the school.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. All right, well, I guess I will begin. Hello, my name is Kayla, and this is part one of a joint statement between the BIPOC Affinity Group and the Disability Affinity Group here at JCLS. Sorry about that. To Jackson County Library Service. I'm very nervous. Please forgive me for
Yeah.
these mistakes. Deep breaths.
Yeah.
To Jackson County Library District Board of Directors and Library Director Carrie May. The Black, Indigenous, People of Color, or BIPOC, and Disability Affinity Groups have come together to show their support for the LGBTQ+ affinity group and their request to reinstate the LGBTQ+ pride banner in the Ashland Library stairwell. We are committed to improving library policies and practices for patrons and staff. We strive to make JCLS libraries a safe space for everybody. The importance and significance of this banner for the Ashland queer community and LGBTQ+ staff cannot be overstated. This is especially true for BIPOC LGBTQ+ community members here in Jackson County. BIPOC LGBTQ+ people are more likely to experience discrimination in many areas of day-to-day life. This includes medical care, mental health care, access to jobs, disparity in policing, housing, and education. According to the NAACP, or the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, youth who are LGBTQ+ and Black, Indigenous, people of color face many additional challenges over youth who are only LGBTQ+ or BIPOC. They are statistically less likely to be out to their families, more likely to have low self-esteem, more likely to be depressed, and have an elevated HIV risk, and the stress of being a multiple minority continues through adulthood. And queer people of color may find less community strength than their white counterparts. LGBTQ+ people are also more likely to be disabled than non-LGBTQ+ people. The intersection of their identities as LGBTQ+ and disabled increases the amount of discrimination and bias they face in all areas of their daily lives. The barriers disabled LGBTQ+ people face start early in life. Disabled LGBTQ+ youth are bullied in school at higher rates, which can increase the risk of dropping out of school. In healthcare settings, disabled queer people face higher risk of discrimination than both their cisgender and heterosexual peers with disabilities, and their LGBTQ+ peers without disabilities, which can cause them to avoid care, leading to unmet health needs and greater health risks. Disabled LGBTQ+ people are also more likely to experience poverty due to earning less for equal work, facing higher unemployment, discrimination in hiring practice, or lacking access to inclusive workplace benefits. Taken together, these troubling trends serve as a call to action for educators, service providers, healthcare professionals, and employers to create more inclusive environments for disabled LGBTQ+ people throughout life in all spaces of daily living. Thank you for listening to what I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam Karadig. I'm a library associate in Eagle Point. I am also a facilitator of both I am a co-facilitator of the LGBTQ plus affinity group and the facilitator of the disability affinity group. So, part two. According to the 2023 U.S. National Survey on the Mental Health of LGBTQ plus people from the Trevor Project says that 68% of LGBTQ young people reported that the creation of safe spaces would improve their lives significantly. But how do people recognize a safe space? The Pride banner at the Ashland Library was an important symbol of a safe space. With so many struggles for LGBTQ plus people, symbols like the Pride banner are a clear sign that they are welcome here and supported. LGBTQ plus patrons knew that if they were targeted by homophobia or transphobia while in the library, they would receive support from the staff. The visibility from the street also let people outside know that the library that if they needed help, they could find it here. The library is a place where people come to get resources, get connected, and find information that may help them. The library is a tool that can be used to fight discrimination and help people better their lives. The banner was a statement that all are welcome and all are free from discrimination regardless of race, gender, or sexuality. The Pride banner does not mean that straight people are not welcome. It means that more than just straight people are welcome here. Now that it has been removed, a new message has been sent to many LGBTQ plus people that the library will prioritize the comfort of straight people over the safety of LGBTQ plus people and other minorities. Jackson County has experienced an increase in violence against the queer population. This is highlighted by a group called Rogue Valley Salt Shakers, who regularly protest LGBTQ plus affirming events and spaces in the community. Due to the escalation in violence, slurs, and protests, we believe the Pride banner is not a political statement. Rather, it is a sign which sends the message to all people that this is a safe space. The perceived lack of support for the LGBTQ staff within JCLS could also impact our workplace and our turnaround, just as it does with other minorities who feel unsupported. When employees have to hide their authentic selves at work, employee engagement suffers by up to 30%. Compared to their counterparts, closeted and isolated LGBTQ plus employees are 73% more likely to say they intend to leave their company in the next 3 years. Inclusion drives productivity and retention. With these things in mind, we would like to reiterate what the Queer Affinity Group has already asked of the Library Board of Directors and Library Carrie May. I won't read them out loud, but here are listed the original 5 requests. In addition, we ask that the affinity groups be consulted about the impact the decisions will have on groups we represent. The groups are a resource for JCLS, and representation in the decision-making process shows a commitment to our mission of connecting people to information, ideas, and each other. Sincerely, Jackson County Library Services, Disability, and BIPOC Affinity Groups. And then a personal piece that I wasn't able to get time in for, I would like to pass out as well. There is that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Bergstrom.
I'm gonna stand here because then the people back here can hear me. If you're like me and you need to see
Yeah,
somebody's
yeah.
face to hear them speaking. I moved to Medford from another state 11 years ago and have more than a passing interest in what happens here at the library. I am here at least every week. And have a background as a reading teacher, a public school librarian, and a public library reference librarian. So librarians are very near and dear to and libraries are very near and dear to my heart. And in that little box, and then I have the other box of being a gardener, an avid gardener. And then I have another box of being an artist. And in all of those, how could we even think of turning the water off and not having that beautiful water feature out there be part of our public art display here in this city? if we would hire expensive consultants, and you know, consultants are very expensive, to come into our city and say, this is what we ought to do to make our city better. That'd be one of the things they put on that list of recommendations, turn that water back on. We don't need to hire an expensive consultant to tell us that. It's just that obvious to all of us. Now, I wasn't gonna speak on this until I heard Cal, because when I come in, I always see Cal's cheery face and I always talk to him. Because I'm always admiring the plants, the vases, the flower arrangements, all the beauty that he adds to our space. And we talk, he sees the kind of books that I check out, and so he recommends, gee, I think you'd like this one too. And I check them out, and I'm number one in the Cal fan club, and I'm just here to support him too, which I didn't intend to do until I heard his comments. So for whatever that's worth, thank you for listening to me. Go library. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we and reordered the order of items on our agenda today.
Before you do, just,
Oh,
is there anyone on Zoom who wished to give public comment and has not raised their hand?
There is a hand raised.
Hand up here.
okay.
Hi, if I'm allowed to do this, I don't know how this works, so.
Sure. I don't know if you heard the instructions in the beginning. If you're here to comment on something.
Yeah.
Proceedings.
I
then you-
joined a couple minutes late. I'm sorry.
They have 3 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say hello. My name is Erica. I'm an owner of a book-themed restaurant. I do live in Corvallis, Oregon, but I go down to Ashland and Medford and grew up in that area using the Jackson County Library System. So I just wanted to say that I spent many of my formative years utilizing the Jackson County Library System on a really regular basis. Access to these spaces was really instrumental in guiding me to become an active member of my local community and to collaborate on shared spaces and events. Libraries have a special place in my heart in many ways, and the access to books to borrow is of course the biggest one, but beyond that, buildings that hold space for folks to gather together goes beyond the physical books themselves. This includes community events, access to a communal space, and a dedication to art and honoring the idea and practice of learning. For these reasons, I would like to support CalBase's dream and goal of preserving the water feature as an active art piece at the Medford Library. This is a piece of art that entices folks into the library to be curious and seek answers to life's questions. I believe that this physical representation, the wellspring of knowledge, honors and will continue to invite and inspire current patrons and young folks to continue to engage with and see libraries as very important dynamic cornerstones of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. I don't see any other hands out there. Okay. So back to new business. Again, we did reorder the agenda a little bit since there are people who I am assuming are here for this part of the agenda rather than for the regular reports that will be going on as we proceed through the agenda. So the first item of new business is the Ashland Pride banner. And a memo went out in the board packet. I'm curious, should I read this or? Okay. The board has seen the memo that went out, but not everybody probably either had access or took the time to read this. Anyway, title is the Ashland Pride banner, coming from the executive committee of the board, which is myself and Susan Kiefer. The summary during the July board meeting, the Jackson County Library District Board heard public comments from patrons regarding Library Director Carrie May's decision to remove the pride banner from the Ashland Library. Staff represented by the Queer Affinity Group shared a statement as well, asking the board to reconsider the decision to have the banner removed. In the process of reconsideration, the board reviewed email correspondence from members of the public and JCLS staff and heard public comments at the July 19th board meeting. The board held a work session on July 29th, 2024 to review policies and discuss the matter. The recommendation that is coming from the executive committee is during the discussion at the work session, the board reached consensus that the pride banner display did constitute a display and as such should not have remained in place for years as a more permanent installation. Therefore, the executive committee recommends that the board uphold Library Director Carrie May's decision to remove the pride banner display from the Ashland Branch Library. So that is the memo. Is there any further discussion from the board or questions for Susan and I?
Is there a motion?
Well, we will get there. There is not a motion at this.
Well, we ought
point.
to have a motion on the floor to have discussion.
Discussion, okay, sorry. So I guess I would entertain a motion to uphold Carrie's decision to keep the pride banner removed from the Ashland Library as a permanent display, not.
I move to uphold Carrie May's decision as per policy.
I'll second it for purposes of getting it on the floor and then we can have some discussion.
So we have a motion and a second. That was Kevin and Susan, if that helps out. Okay. So. Marissa, if you have any comments or questions or anybody else that's present in the room. Now would be the time.
Yeah, I think we're ready for a vote.
Well, I would like to say something about this before we go further. I'm concerned that removal of the banner is being seen as as an indication that the library is no longer a safe space for people in the LGBTQ plus community. And I don't I am interested in having everybody in whatever, there are many different groups who have occasion to feel oppressed and unsafe that also need to find the library, that I would like them to find the library as a safe space. And while I don't think the library needs to post welcome signs for each individual group that might be oppressed, I am interested in publicly having the library perceived as being welcoming to all. So I don't really want to, I'm willing to uphold the decision to remove the Pride banner and display it during Pride Month or whenever, but I would also be interested, I mean, one of the requests for action in addition, if we uphold the removal of the banner, there are a variety of requests that have been made. And
one of the things that I think might be helpful, at least for me, would be to perhaps have some sort of a meeting between the LGBTQ group and members of the board to figure out what sort of remedy would actually be acceptable that wouldn't just open us up to having every oppressed group in the valley wanting to have some symbol of welcome posted in the library, unless we do some sort of a display that would honor that. And of course, displays generally are not a permanent thing, but I would be interested, I guess, is where I'm trying to go, is I would be interested in having more conversation about why removal of the flag would be seen as being unsupportive, and what sorts of steps, other than the ones in addition to the ones that have been requested, might be helpful. It's not very articulate, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Martha,
Thank you. I believe I've asked some questions about the analysis of the policy, as well as about the conversations that have happened between the library leadership and the LGBTQ plus affinity group since the removal of the banner. And I exhausted quite a few of those questions at a study session. So I will not belabor the point. I will preview for all that I will not be voting in favor of approving the banner removal. And I'm a policy wonk, so in policy analysis, I will find my strength. My no vote will not be communicating an overall dissent from the board, as I joined it rather recently. It will be communicating that on this particular policy, as voiced in one of the statements submitted to us, the flag became a more permanent display. And in gray area, which has been cited by the library before in the analysis, in a gray area and with context that we've heard testimony about and received emails and statements about since, in a situation like this, I would wish to see the library err on the side of inclusion, perceived and real. So I will not be making an alternate motion because I received feedback from fellow board members ahead of time at a study session that they would be voting in favor of this. So that's why you will not see me make an alternate motion. But just wanted to say that with respect to the library journal's decisions and the board, my analysis would fall on the other side of this, and that's why you make your no vote for it. That's it. Thank you.
Vicki, do you have a statement of that would be an appropriate time for me to chime in on this one? Or if you're,
sure, I have a short one, I'll do that. And then I was going to read this as we were completing, but and this is more just a summary from me. I think all of the board members understand the impact of a decision of this type on individuals who strongly oppose it. And I think we all want to assure members of the public and JCLS staff that a decision to remove the banner does not constitute any wavering of support for libraries that are welcoming and inclusive. We value the diversity of our workforce, including LGBTQ plus individuals and other marginalized groups. We are committed to assuring that our libraries are safe spaces for all people to utilize for their social, educational, and vocational needs. Carrie.
I just want to state that, or to say that the library district's administration team wants to reiterate our support for the local LGBTQ plus individuals. We strive to create an inclusive community through our library services, our collections and operations that reflect the cities and towns we serve. JCLS also rotates displays throughout the year at our branches and regularly highlight LGBTQ voices. Our programs are open to everyone, and one such program, our Queer Coffee House, has remained a popular recurring offering for queer patrons and their allies. Libraries administration is committed to maintaining this safe and welcoming environment. With such a commitment in mind, we recognize LGBTQ communities are intersectional, including the BIPOC, disability, and neurodiverse individuals. Recognition and accurate representation of LGBTQ people in JCLS branches are important aspects of creating safe public spaces for people of many intersectional identities. We also recognize that such spaces must be maintained as we witness multiple forms of violence carried out against marginalized communities in Jackson County and across the country. As the library director, I care deeply about every individual who works at JCLS, and I am dedicated to creating a library space that is welcoming to everyone we serve. Sometimes it may appear like those two statements are at odds with each other. That is one of the challenges of being a modern library system. Creating a safe and welcoming space for everyone to connect to information, ideas, and each other's is a daily challenge, but is one that we will continue to meet. Our unwavering support for the LGBTQ+ employees and patrons is fundamental to our organization.
Any additional comment?
I figure I'll just make one quick statement that I think our
Okay.
director has given very thoughtful consideration to this very sensitive issue. And I don't believe I can find anyone that would, or any reason we would have to reiterate our commitment to welcoming all people. We seem to have said it in almost every meeting. It's very clear to the community, I think. So.
So we have a motion and a second. This is a normal, yes, no, kind of vote, okay. So all in favor, either say
In
yes
this
or.
matter, it would be helpful if we did a roll call simply to,
Okay. That's
What?
simply so that I could, or
I mean, that's our call, actually. Does anyone on the board want to?
It doesn't, I don't
Fair
care
enough.
if it makes it easier.
fair enough, if ayes and nays are fine, I just need to be able to get it for the minutes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so all in favor, okay, there's Marissa. Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
Opposed,
Thank you.
abstentions, because we've all voted. Okay. Give you a minute to get that finished up. Thank you. On to policy review, intellectual freedom, Helda.
Thank you, if anybody wants to speak.
Yeah, feel free to.
It's not you, Calvin.
Probably us.
Good afternoon. In your packets, you have an agenda item memo and a couple of policy, a draft of a policy for the intellectual freedom policy. I am presenting on behalf of the policy committee. Are there any questions about the reformatting and additional context added to the intellectual freedom policy?
I have one grammatical.
Oh, yes, well, there.
It wouldn't be.
Right.
Such a
So, in the introduction,
Yes.
in the first line, intellectual freedom is a core value of the library profession and a basic right of our democratic society, and there don't need to be a comma.
I see.
There, I saw it.
Darn.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh, my- Sorry, but
Got
I'm just made.
You got it.
Where's the comma?
First sentence of the introduction.
Profession. No reason.
We will get that fixed.
So I do have a question.
That's easy.
Yeah, what's up?
Do we have any other policies where we just basically take wholesale from other organizations' policies?
I don't believe so.
And what is the? It says we adopted the following statements as policy, so basically, whatever is in those 4 documents is actually the policy of the Jackson.
Right, those are the statements that we are agreeing with and upholding.
So they could change it, and if we don't change our policy,
We have adopted the version that they had. So if they change their policy, we would be voting to change which version of their policy we were
Of the statements.
adopting.
Unless, yeah, we would keep this version as our policy unless we vote to amend our policy.
And that was,
we only do this once every 3 years, is that correct?
so as part of this review process, we verified that these statements had not changed since the last time we reviewed this policy. So if and when like the Library Bill of Rights, ALA wanted to amend that and they release a new version in April of 2025, we would either wait until 2027 to adopt that policy, or we would bring that version before the board for consideration to approve if that was what we felt was the right direction.
That's the proposal.
So yeah.
I wanted to thank you for doing the work on this. The 4 statements in section 3 are hyperlinked. I'm guessing in the virtual document are correct. So in section 2, the first paragraph,
Yes.
because I'm just now familiarizing myself with all of the ALA trustees rules and whatnot. If we can do a link, if you anticipate it to be an evergreen hyperlink to the Intellectual Freedom Toolkit glossary on the State Library, that would be good too.
Okay.
So everything that is being referenced to here is linked.
Gotcha.
Because I know I'll be Googling this, right?
Yeah.
And then we're in another policy, we're going to be rescinding our own ethics policy. Or the proposal is to do that. I'm wondering, why would we want to choose a code of ethics? How is it different from our own?
This ALA Code of Ethics is specific to librarianship and has been foundational for the profession over the years. And so I think it really speaks to values of librarians and so it's going to be necessarily different because it's about library services.
As opposed to general government.
Correct.
So it's more ethics for librarians as a profession, and the library as a library system as how we uphold library ethics versus
Right.
the ethics policy for the board and staff is as public officials. These are the Oregon state statutes that
Right.
govern what we can and cannot do. So they're not
No, for example,
intersectional.
the first, we provide the highest level of service to all library users through the appropriate, usefully organized resources, equitable service policies, equitable access, and accurate, unbiased, and courteous responses to all requests. That is a tenet of librarianship. We uphold the principles of intellectual freedom and resist all efforts to censor library resources. And so they're specific to library services.
Do we have any information about when any of these statements might have been amended?
Indeed, in the background section here, I kind of summarized some of it. Yeah, I summarized some of it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so most of them.
On page 14 in the background and additional definition section. Page 14.
The reason I included all of this is really to show that these statements have been around for a long time, and they are still relevant today.
We should motion on the floor. We're going, how about if I move approval of this and then we can.
And John, second.
Second.
Now, any more questions for
And I've
discussion?
got the 2 edits. And so really, it's essentially putting it back in front of you. As you can see, the formatting is quite different now. And then I added some context to it.
I think we should adopt these as policies. I mean, they are longstanding tenets of library. That's what I want to do. So, and I don't think there's anything in any of these statements that we wouldn't want to support.
I see this as proactive housekeeping. It's very important. Thank you for your work on this.
I'm not trying to trivialize the word, but by saying housekeeping is any sophisticated district such as this one should have and should regularly update, and it's been 8 years.
It's foundational, yeah, it's reaffirmed.
Discussion is complete. If there are any more questions. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And raise your hand. Maybe. Whatever is more helpful for that.
Marissa raised her hand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I missed the policy.
It was not a good thing. Kevin, neither of us was there.
No, I'm just.
I didn't.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. Or, okay, policy review, Oregon government ethics law policy.
Yes, so that's me, right? I think that's me. So, you know, as Kevin alluded, we are recommending the revocation of the independent or the separate standing as an ethics law policy. Because as indicated in the other 2 documents in your board packet, we have incorporated for the governing board, the conflict of interest in Oregon ethics law, into the board packet. I'm going to get my page numbers all, it's in there. If you need a page number now, I'll tell you what it is. It starts on page 28. And then also in our staff policy manual, we also cite this. We are required by Oregon statute to follow it, whether we have a separate policy or not. And we're also required to keep it updated and do what they tell us. So by keeping it in the other 2 places, we will continue to make sure that those are current when if and when Oregon ethics law changes. It doesn't make us any less beholden to conducting ourselves in an ethical manner. I'm sorry, we didn't have a motion second.
Move to rescind the Oregon government ethics law policy.
Second.
Now discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. Should we have a policy on our books that just incorporates the statute by reference? So that anybody who looks at our policies will know that we haven't just forgotten about ethics.
It's
I mean, I know
incorporated
the
into the,
statute requires us to do it. I get that part. I just.
right, but we do currently have it in our governance. Board duties and responsibilities manual specifically cites the ORS.
All right.
That's all in there, so we do already do that.
My question would be, is our policy, the one that we are rescinding, is it any more stringent than the state requires?
No.
It is not.
No, and I think it's largely redundant with what we incorporated. I think what happened was we incorporated this into our library, our board governance policy, but didn't take it out of be in a separate policy.
So not with the $50 versus $100 or anything like that.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So, housekeeping question. Section 7, as presented, starting on page 28 of our packet. It's going to be as it is presented now, or we're going to change any references, or it's gonna be, section 7 ethics does not change.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So what we're seeing right now in the packet is what it's gonna be going forward, that does not change. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was part of the review, is we did look at both what is in our employee handbook and what is in the board governance handbook to say we're still compliant with the current law. And then we're like, this independent policy, and we did actually consult legal, I should say. Yeah, we did consult legal and say, this is okay, right? But we have, and she's the one who pointed out that even with none of our own policy, we would still need that full.
To insert levity and a comic relief, if we do find somebody who's willing to gift up to $100 to anything pertaining to the library, we just send them to Jean Howard.
Or me.
Right.
Then we have to keep you out of work.
No, I'm thinking under it.
Any further questions? We have a motion and a second to rescind the ethics policy. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous, thank you. We'll make the meetings seem longer doing action. Okay, on to reports. The library director's report, Carrie May.
All right. Well, I would like to start by introducing Kristen Anderson, who is our area manager. I'm like, what's her title? Area manager for the Bear Creek region, and one of our experts and specialists in Readers Advisory, who would like to tell you a little bit about what Readers Advisory means in Jackson County and for our patrons. And she was going to have a co-presenter who called in sick today. So unfortunately for Kristen, the burden's all on her, but you've got this, Kristen.
I do. And I just need to warn you that my phone started ringing literally right when I unmuted my phone. So hopefully I hit a button. I'm hoping it's going to stop ringing soon. You may not even hear it because of the way filters work, but let me find in all of my crazy windows I have open. There we go. That should get my presentation up on the screen. Is that working, Carrie?
We can see a lot of things on your screen, including.
You can see a lot of things on my screen, not just the PowerPoint. So I didn't share it the way I intended to.
So we can see your Word document too.
Yeah, that was, I mean, there's nothing in that Word document that is troubling to me, but.
Well, I can't read it because it's so small. So
let me.
It started with library loves, and I like that.
Yeah, it was that's actually a resource I was going to use in this presentation. It is document 1, presentation.
There we go.
There it's working. I could have it did the same thing that I'd already done, but hopefully that is working now from your end.
Yep, thumbs up.
Yay. Okay, sweet. Hi, I'm Kristen Anderson. I'm the Ashland, or I'm actually the Bear Creek area manager. I manage Ashland, but I also oversee Phoenix and Talent. And I help out with Readers Advisory initiatives throughout the system. And Readers Advisory is a very library specific term. In retail, they call it hand selling or book selling. Really, it's just a simple way of, or a complicated way of saying book recommendations. But what we do in a library setting is pretty complicated when you start breaking it down. And really, in my head, what it looks like is an awful lot of like what you're looking at on your screen, that big crazy network diagram. Like that's what's going on in library staff's head when we're trying to help hook people up with book recommendations that will help them find their next great read. So at its core, what it is the practice of connecting library users to their next great read. And that can be in the form of fiction. Oftentimes we get really focused on fiction, but it's also nonfiction. There's a lot of great narrative nonfiction titles, you know, Eric Larson, or you've got like memoirs. Those tend to be also occasionally overlooked by people who are getting really focused on fiction. So we try and broaden the way we think about it to fiction and nonfiction. Audiobooks count. And it looks a little bit different in children's, teen, and adult. So in children's, it might look like a young kiddo coming in saying, show me the dinosaur books. And that can turn into a reference question because it might be, I want a specific book about a T-Rex, but it might be, I want you to look at all of those shelves of picture books that are all alphabetical by author, not by topic, and help me find the dinosaur books. And you need a library, like librarians who know those collections can find the dinosaur books in all of those spines. So that's how it might look in a children's section. And in a teen section, what we often see is people saying, you know, I'm trying to navigate this collection. I really like graphic novels, or you know, I really don't like romance, and there is a lot of romance, and even in genre fiction of other genres in teens. So help me find some that don't have romance in them. That's a question we're used to answering. In adult, it can look like, hey, I just finished this great book that I heard about on NPR or on the New York Times bestseller. And what else do you have that is like that? That's the kind of question we get. So it's connecting the right reader to the right book at the right time. It can also look like, and this is where I lost access to that Word document because my screen went. Doesn't matter. I can wing it. So it can look like somebody coming into the library and saying, I read this really specific book at this really specific time. It was, in the example that I had up, it was a fantasy book about dragons that also had some sci-fi elements that I know I read in about 2016 at BYU. And I really want to find that specific book. So it's not a book I'm looking for that's a future read. It's like I'm trying to identify a past read that I loved. And that usually takes a lot of brain, like a lot of us to throw at it. We all went in different ways. Like someone was like, well, BYU is an LDS school, so let's look for the LDS fantasy authors. So you're looking at Orson Scott Card. And then you've got other people who are like trying to figure out things that were in the published 2016, 2017. But that, it turns out, was a spoiler because that's not when it was published. That was just when it was read. Ultimately, one of our librarians in Medford, Jonathan Ulrich, was able to identify the specific book that was published in 1970 and had been read as a part of his curriculum at BYU, but now they are able to, sorry, I don't know if the person was a man or a woman, I just applied those pronouns willy-nilly, but we're able to find that book and get that book to the person who was wanting to remember it. And that's another kind of reader's advisory that's really fun and often becomes a little bit competitive, and Teams has made it really easy for us to collaborate doing those sorts of questions.
And Kristen, usually it includes something like, I don't remember the title, but it had a blue cover, right?
Yeah.
That's the class.
There's actually a meme that shows up every once in a while on librarian social media that's like a bin of books, and it's like they've all got red covers, and the sign on the display is, I don't remember the book title, but it was red or something like that. Like, people remember very strange things, and people aren't always reliable narrators of the strange things that they remember, and they can conflate multiple books. So it can get really complicated and is super rewarding when you connect them to the right book. So why is it important? Reading is really personal. And so people are kind of sharing parts of themselves with us when they ask us these questions. And there's not one answer. Like if someone comes in and is looking for the Chilton manual that goes with the specific Corolla they have, I'm definitely dating myself because people don't really use Chilton manuals anymore, but there is one Chilton manual that solves that problem for them. And that is, or there's one definition of whatever they're looking for in a legal dictionary. But when it comes to reader's advisory, there could be 5 or 6 different books, even more, that meet their needs. And so it's an iterative conversation that involves getting to know someone a little bit better to get them the answer to that question. And particularly big readers, I'm a big reader. A lot of our kiddos are big readers because young people need to read a lot in order to become proficient readers. And we've got a lot of, in Ashland, we've got a lot of retirees who have more time on their hands. They're also prolific readers, but it can span all demographics. Those folks need a lot of books to keep them fed. Young people who are advanced readers present their own specific challenge because once you start having a child reading at a higher grade level than their age, they often are looking in areas where their parents might want to help in their quest for looking for books, and we participate in those kinds of conversations. It definitely creates a sense of connection. Some of the people who come into the library really are looking for a conversation with with an adult. Not all of the people who come in want that, but some of the people who are coming to us are looking for a conversation with another adult, and we are able to provide that and talk about books at the same time. But it also improves circulation, which is a really important part of statistics. And those of us who love doing it, like, it's my favorite part of librarianship. There are people who would tell you that they would much rather deal with like a really in-depth genealogy question and find that exact, I don't know, birth record or whatever. I would much rather go out in the stacks and try and find someone a horror book that they haven't read yet. All of us are different. So how do we do it? It takes a lot of listening. We have to know our collection really well, know what it is, know what books are shelved in which sections, what's it, like, how would you like, I just lost my train of thought, and I'm going to just step back from what I was about to say because I don't remember what it was. I was going somewhere with that. Collection awareness, deep knowledge of books in general and what's being published, what's popular right now. There's always kind of an it book every year, and sometimes that can like lend itself to what the trends are and what people are asking about. This year, James by Percival Everett is one of the ones that a lot of people are talking about. It's getting recognized for a lot of awards. It happens to be a Huck Finn retelling. So we're talking about, we've been talking amongst ourselves on staff about retellings because people are interested in them right now. It can create trends. We need research skills, we need intuition, and we build relationships over time with our patrons who will come back and say, that book was great, that was exactly what I was looking for, or that one, not so much. And that knowing something that they didn't like helps you refine your recommendation for the next time. So it's really great when it's an iterative process with people who come back to you time after time. What do we have at JCLS that is a part of our Reader's Advisory kind of portfolio, if you will? We have a skilled staff that provides in-person Reader's Advisory on a regular basis to patrons who come through. We have databases in our system, like Novelist is the biggest one that we use, and that is a really useful tool that people can use passively to find books themselves if they don't want to talk to someone. If they're an introvert, or if they just want to do it when the library is not open, it's a great tool we provide. Our catalog with its discovery layer also falls into that category. If discovery layer is kind of a technical term, but if you go to a page in our library catalog that's telling you about a specific book, I just mentioned James, so say we're looking at James, you can scroll down, you can find books in there that it thinks are read-alikes. You can find books, you can find reviews of that book. You can find additional information about that book, and often that author, if it's a prolific enough author, and Percival Everett has written enough that I think we have like information about the author in there too. We have a blog that regularly features kind of expansion and like a book list that might tie to an article that would talk about a specific thing that was popular. Briston most recently did some horror writing for us. But we've got one up right now about Chapel Roan by Ethan. We have our Read This videos that are recorded monthly. We've got a JCLS discovery service that you can access from our catalog. That is a form-based reader's advisory. So individual patrons can give us information about what they like using a form. And then we take that form and we turn around and we give them a list of books that meet those needs. And then they can review those books and place holds from the list and then come to the library and pick them up. We also have book discussion programs at many of our libraries. We have Book Page magazine available in all our libraries, thanks to the foundation. And we regularly update and produce seasonal displays that help patrons find great books in our libraries. And those were the big things that I wanted to tell you about Reader's Advisory. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. Hey, Kristen, do you guys have tags on the view that you get of a certain book on your system that say like dinosaurs, and would give you all the dinosaur books of children's or things like that? And
So
you select for and select against?
So our catalog would have, so there are ways in our catalog to find any picture, like I could easily using the catalog and I could show any patron how to do this, how to find any book that has, that's a picture book and has dinosaur fiction in the subject head. That's pretty easy to do. What is not easy to do is get to the ones that are the really popular ones that everyone, like that's what the skilled library staff is able to bring to that is kind of a deep knowledge of what's been written and what's been published, as opposed to a list of books that meet those specific criteria. But yes, you can do that with our catalog.
And there's not a secret librarian view that gives you that information. We can teach our patrons to fish as well.
Okay.
But
Yes.
there are ways to kind of decipher what's in the catalog, or to use some of the filters to drill down, like, no, I only want a book that's in this library right now. Don't show me all the possibilities. Show me what I can take home today on 5.
Right.
Or 55, you know, it doesn't matter.
Showing people how to do that facet can be a really popular one, because oftentimes they're like, all of these books, why are none of them here? Well, we got 15 branches.
And it can be here soon.
Yeah.
It doesn't take
Mhm.
long to get there, so.
Yeah, but I'm 5.
It does not.
Right, yeah.
And I just want to point out a couple of things. One, the JCLS Discovery is a service that we added during the pandemic because people weren't able to come in and browse our collections. And particularly with the young crowd, you know, dinosaurs being a great example. Mom just wants, she's like, my child's home, we're stuck home together, they love dinosaurs, they will read the same 20 books for the next 3 weeks, that's fine. But can you just gather some for me? We don't have specific titles in mind. So we started doing kind of theme grouped book bags that we put together. And then as we came back online, and particularly for a broader audience, it's harder to just, I mean, I'm a cozy mystery fan. I'll admit it, Kristen, out publicly. But
That's great.
I've read a lot of them, and there's some I like more than others. And if you just threw 10 cozy mysteries in a bag, I might like one of them. So we developed this template so that somebody puts in the criteria. I might put in, I like Ellie Alexander, Krista Davis is one of my favorite. And you know what? I didn't really care for, I'm not gonna put anybody on their bus there, but didn't care for this one. So they're looking through to refine what cozy mystery I might like. They're using those criteria to narrow down from that universe of hundreds of cozy mysteries. So that's a really cool service.
So they can say.
It was really nice of you not to do in a public meeting.
Right, yeah, and it's, and I think the other thing is when Kristen said that or patrons enjoy coming in and saying, you know, Kristen, I really like that book you recommended. Now I want to recommend one to you. That's when you know you've built that relationship, is when they come back in and say, I like the one you recommend. Are you willing to try this one that I recommended? And that's where that dialogue and that building a relationship happens and is really fun.
Do you still have the staff reads, like the books that staff members recommend regardless of the audiences?
Yeah, so in many of our branches, we still have displays, you know, we put them up kind of periodically throughout the year, but we found that those are really popular displays. And so many of our branches have chosen to keep those up perennially, all the time.
Yeah, we do. And the other place that we do staff picks is actually, when I talked about the catalog, I kind of breezed over the power of the lists that are available from our catalog, and you can regularly find staff picks there as well.
How do you actually find the discovery part of the calendar now, catalog? I should know this since I actually know how to use catalogs, but I don't know about that.
And I know Marissa, not to put you on the spot, Marissa, but I know when we first launched the library app, which when you launch a library app, it has curated lists by genre. And I know, Marissa, when you first started using it, you're like, I'm putting more books on hold because those covers pop up right there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. These services are great. I'll just chime in and say that and say hello.
Thanks, Marissa.
Does Readers Advisory have any role in what books are selected for the adult book group bags?
You know, there are deep conversations that happen, and there is a committee that that does make the decisions, and it is driven by what's popular. And I am not I don't participate in that group, but I know that like Lauren and Felicia and public service librarians do take those sorts of things into account. What's really popular right now? What can we get? Because there's certain requirements, like you need to be able to get it in large print and a few other things. And yeah.
It is another kind of Readers Advisory.
It is.
I think there are book groups that are really driven by, I mean, they read what's available, what you have available.
Yep. Yep. And they do a good job of picking the hot titles for that.
Wonderful service. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So just want to follow up on a couple of things and just on the whole Readers Advisory vein, we do have a live and in-person author coming in September 26th during Banned Books Week. Jonathan Evison will be speaking here at the Medford Library in the Grand Reading Room at 6 p.m. He wrote, well, he's written about half a dozen books, but one of his that he became particularly known for was a book called Lawn Boy, which came out in 2021 and quickly became the second most challenged book of the year, particularly in school libraries. So he's going to talk about his rise to notoriety related to that. And he will also be doing a special reception for major donors prior to that event. So that's an invite only for that, but we're excited to have him. Carrie Turney Ross and I met with him this morning, and he's got a lot of energy. So it should be a really engaging conversation that evening. Just to highlight some of the things in the director's report, I want to thank all of you for coming to the 10th anniversary dinner reception, excuse me, in July. That was a really fun and special event. And it was really great to see the impact we've had on our community. It was also really fun to see all of the creativity from our staff with the amazing centerpieces that we put together to highlight
What have you done?
things over time. We have squirreled them away and they will come out at other events in the
Well,
future.
that's good.
Yes,
There
there
was clearly a lot of work
Yes.
put into them, and I was hoping they wouldn't just disappear.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also just want to, point out we're reaching the end of summer reading. School starts soon, but during the month of July, we had a lot of really popular programs. I was able to attend one of the wildlife safari programs, and I hear that they brought whatever animals were kind of looking sociable that day, and I heard rumor that I might see a snake. Luckily, he was not ready to come out that day. We got the tarantula instead, who we could not hold, which is just fine with me. But I got to meet a prairie dog instead of a snake, which was just fine with me. And I went to that program in White City, and it was just really fun to see the engagement with the crowd and the presenters for that. I also learned more about decluttering at a program in Central Point. We had a professional organizer who did a program in multiple branches throughout our system. And then the Cultivating Companions series that several branches held this summer was an effort to help address the loneliness epidemic that we are seeing as a country and connect people. And I think the comments in our report that show some of those connections that people made was a really meaningful story to me. And we did try something a little new this month of gathering some impact stories for you in one section. I just wanted to tell you, prepare for more. We're going to try to feature more stories of how the services we have impact our communities in the future. Are there any questions or comments on any of the information included in the director's report?
I just had a couple of comments, always have a comment on this. The Cultivating Companions is just starting at Eagle Point branch now, we'll be running into the fall, so I did take a flyer and announce that at a women's club luncheon that I went to today, so hopefully we will get some people interested. Since it's centered around indoor gardening, it's a nice topic and something that they're maybe not the most sociable people, so it's a good chance to get people out. I also thought it was outstanding, Jody Fleming from Phoenix, that she had done so many classes at the elementary school, and then all of those kids getting signed up for summer reading and coming into the library. What a huge effort and outreach, but how wonderful to get all of those kids involved. So one other thing that I don't know that was mentioned in there, and I think the class on online personal cybersecurity, I think it's working its way around the branches, and another one that I announced and took a flyer to the luncheon I was at today, because it's, I think especially for older adults, something that's very, very current concern. And you hardly talk to a person that hasn't had some negative experience or know somebody that's had a negative experience. So I think it's a wonderful topic to have out there.
I think sometimes the younger folks think that they're impervious to
Right.
identity theft, and I think sometimes the older generations may worry about it more, and the young, that won't happen to me. So I think it's important for all of us.
I had a question, just, is anything gonna happen about the National Friends of the Library Week? It's coming up October, is that on anyone's radar in October? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually the individual friends groups, are the ones who plan those activities. Our official focus, if you will, would be on the, volunteer week in April is when the library itself, celebrates the volunteer support from our friends organizations.
And there's usually a proclamation.
Yes, and there's usually a proclamation.
So that's in April?
The volunteer in April, yeah. But we'll do a proclamation in October.
In October, yeah, the library week.
Yes. Thank you for.
A lot of events going on.
Yeah, and I know, some of the different friends groups plan different activities during National Friends of Library Week, and I believe it's at the Ashland Friends Group that I'm doing a panel presentation on banned books. Or banned books and challenges, just general challenges facing libraries these days. I'm confusing, I'm doing two different presentations in October, so I'm confusing the topic, but yeah.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I just want to add in some comments as well. Again, a lot of great work being done at the library, and then just something to keep in mind for the future is, events for working families, so weekends, evenings. People were kind of commenting about that, and then not just old people are looking for community, but young people have been expressing to me that they need community, and we've been kind of wondering if the library might sort of cater events to kind of younger people, 20s to 40s, who are kind of looking to connect. Everyone's looking to connect after the pandemic. And then great work with the DART. I got a lot of comments from the public about how visible it is, how they've seen it all around at all the events. So that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. And Marissa, to your first point, we do have a program optimization task, it's POP, I can't remember what it stands for.
Program Optimization Project Task Force.
Yeah, so we have a task force that is really analyzing our programs. They are working on a patron survey or a community survey to go out, and I'm sure one of those questions is, what time would you be most likely to attend a program? And so make sure we get that captured as we try to get better alignment with programs matching our community needs.
Oh,
So, thank you.
That's cool. I was, when I was going through the statistics part of this packet, looking at the program stuff, I was thinking about exactly this issue.
Yes.
How do you figure out what to do programs on and who
And when and
can come
where.
and when? And
Yep.
that's-
Yes, and I'll just point out to you, it is part of our strategic plan is to try to really optimize our programming as a whole, and it's not something that changes overnight. So really excited to see the progress of that task force.
And we will hear from them, I assume.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and Marissa, I apologize for missing you to request comments, so please feel free to speak up anytime you have a question, and I'm not calling on you. Okay, statistical report and strategic plan update. Hold up, yes.
And joining me is Regina Menino, who is our data and analytics coordinator.
Hi.
We're going to be tag teaming this presentation, and Regina's going to kick us off. Thank you.
So all the data will be up to June 30th, right?
Exactly,
Gotcha.
yes. Good evening, all. Today we'll be reviewing the JCLS fiscal year-end statistics data.
One second. Smaller enough, we don't know. Center, okay.
Our key performance indicators include total circulation, physical circulation, digital circulation, library visits, new card holders, and computer use. These are our standard metrics, and I will be going through each of them in part one of this presentation. Additionally, we have our strategic plan metrics. These include Spanish collection circulation, Library of Things circulation, physical versus digital circulation, program offerings and attendance, community outreach by focus area, social service referrals, and staff training. These metrics were adopted for the 2022 to 2026 strategic plan. Kelda will be discussing each of these in part two of the presentation. To begin, we have our key performance indicators. From fiscal year 19 through fiscal year 21, total circulation dipped from 2 million to around 1.25 million. Each fiscal year since then, we've seen year-over-year gains. Fiscal year 24 total circulation is around 1.8 million, indicating that fiscal year 24 reached 88.7% of the total circulation JCLS had prior to the pandemic in fiscal year 19.
Can I interrupt you for one quick question? Do we know? I'm sure somebody knows, but do you know off the top of your head if 2019 was like the all-time high for circulation, or I assume we're using that because it's pre-COVID.
Exactly.
And we've been trying to recover from COVID, but I was just curious as to whether that was like typical the top or what sort of we've been
That's a
doing.
good question. I haven't looked at the data prior to that, but we can look into that.
Yeah, and I'd like to see the average circulation for the last 5 years prior to 19, say.
Not to interrupt her.
Actually,
One of the things.
yeah, I was just gonna, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carrie. Well, I was gonna say this was something that we were trying to talk about at our last statistics meeting, is just kind of, yeah, what are our average metrics? But like we kind of discussed, it's kind of also hard to average something, right? That's not been a metric that we've used in the past. But I see your point, and I think that was what I was looking for at our last statistics meeting, is just, yeah, what is our general average? But to kind of put your question in context, I would just go skip over to page 58, and that puts it in the per capita, which may help with some of your questions that you're wondering.
Well, that just raises more, but that's, yeah.
Well, and so I think too, like, this is our twice a year look, and what we would do in normal times is really kind of do a 3-year comparison. And then as part of when we get to the annual statistics, and once we have comparison data and kind of that bigger picture, I know we've talked too about doing, now that we have 10 years of data as a, putting together some data of all 10 years. So actually, the other question we asked at the meeting was, when do we just start using 3 years instead of 6, right? We started by using a 3-year comparison and then a 4 and now a 5, now 6. You know, is it time to say, okay, we're reaching back out from the bottom of the trend? And so kind of off the top of my head, I'm going to say that fiscal year 18 and 19 were pretty close to each other, to answer your original question. And part of the reason we're using that is that was our benchmark pre-pandemic, and now we're getting close to it again.
Oh, do you have the per capita though by year? Because I think that would be most informative as well, though. Like the total circulation, for example, for 2019, you know, blah, 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 all the years per capita.
Oh, across all of them? I don't right now, but I could get that for you.
Yeah, that would be good for later, because I think that's, again, what the board is also trying to ask in a different way.
Okay.
So I look at, yeah, sorry.
So let's keep going. Slide 6. Thank you. Here we can see that overall fiscal year 24 performed higher than any other post-pandemic year, but did not surpass the performance of pre-pandemic years. And now for physical circulation, from fiscal year 19 through fiscal year 21, physical circulation dipped from 1.78 million to under 1 million. Each fiscal year since then, we've seen year-over-year gains. Fiscal year 24 physical circulation is around 1.3 million, indicating that fiscal year 24 reached 73.7% of the physical circulation JCLS reported prior to the pandemic in fiscal year 19. Many public libraries are seeing a reduction in their physical checkouts year over year. So it's interesting and heartening to see JCLS resisting that national trend.
And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that our physical circulation in 2019 almost matches our total circulation this year. So physical plus digital, you know, we're meeting what was physical only. Just a strange coincidence, but I liked it.
The delta is made up by digital.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Although JCLS's physical circulation trend shows year-over-year improvement, monthly circulation appears to be more stable this year than in other prior post-pandemic years. This chart also shows seasonality. There's a dip in physical circulation in September and in February that reoccurs across multiple years.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. That there's a couple of these graphs where there's bumps in the same places. And I'm not just, it wasn't just this one.
I always get excited when I see those. Like there's something going on. And next slide, please. The physical circulation metric is a combination of both initial checkouts and renewals. Here we see how the monthly data from fiscal year 24 is split between initial checkouts and renewals, with monthly initial checkouts tending to range from 59,000 to 73,000, and renewals tending to range from 38,000 to 44,000. As a reminder, JCLS has auto renewal. This means that the first 2 times that an item comes due, if no other patient has a hold on it, it auto renews.
When did we start that?
2018, I believe. I think when we 17 earlier. Really? Yes. Marta was one of our first users of that, apparently.
I think it was 17.
Okay.
So what does this chart tell us? That we have almost 2/3 of books are always renewed? that kind of
So
what?
what this is saying is when we talk about our physical circulation, we're looking at the number that you can see there at the bottom. So it's like, oh, we're, this past fiscal year and fiscal year 24, we were over 100,000. I think all months or mostly all months, but that's not all like the first time people checked out a book. A portion of that physical circulation is the renewals that are always happening.
So this is a new chart that Regina developed for this presentation that kind of breaks it down to explain what that circulation metric is composed of.
And I think what's interesting from this, what I get from this is even though the auto renewal can happen up to twice, we're still seeing I'm bad at math, but more than half of all of our circulation is coming from first time checkouts, which means, we've heard from people today, even I go to the library every week. So there are people who are checking things out, returning them within that first period. And then there's people like me who check out way too many books, keep them out for the whole 3 times to offset that.
I'm in
people who
that
return-
group.
Yeah. I had one, I'm like, really? It's already been 9 weeks? How does that happen? But
Called out. Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out whether it's more important though, just like the initial checkout is actually more important than total circulation, I would think.
Well, and that's what the state asks for is specifically the total circulation, including renewals.
Correct.
And so that's what we've focused on is the
Yeah.
total number.
However, it is something that we could use internally to see, what's going on.
Well, it
Yeah.
might stop us from giving ourselves quite so many pats on the back for having gotten back to
Right.
pre-pandemic circulation.
But it's always been
It's
that,
always been that.
right? I mean,
Well,
or-
but
or
there
the-
hasn't been, the auto renewal just started a little bit before the pandemic, so prior.
Yeah.
Circulation statistics prior to 2017 or whatever wouldn't.
right, we
have-
may have had a bump in 2017
Yeah.
because we added auto.
So that would be a contextual note in that tenure.
Is,
Yes.
is auto renewal sort of the rule rather than, or the
It's,
exception these days?
other libraries in Oregon are doing it. It tends to be really popular with patrons because people
Yeah.
don't have
Oh,
to
yeah,
stress as much.
Oh, yeah,
there's-
I was just curious as to whether it's half or
It's a
2/3.
lot easier for staff, I mean, there's a too. Well,
It's just easier all around.
It seems like it would reflect a lot of readers that are like Carrie that check out way more books than you can read in one checkout period. So rather than have to come back every week or two to check out another book where that would look like a first time checkout, well, it's sitting on the bookshelf waiting for it to get to it. I mean, it would seem like it would represent a fair amount of that kind of thing happening. It is real.
That's true, but for me, I end up with auto renewal a fair amount, but it's usually because my life got out of control and I didn't get to read for 3 weeks and then. So I think it's one or the other of those generally.
Does seem like you see a lot of people hauling on a lot of books at one time.
Yeah.
The average person would read the short things.
Now y'all,
Very
they're all
relatable.
cozy.
Reader. Okay, digital circulation. In fiscal year 24, digital circulation approached 500,000. In this chart, we can see that digital circulation has doubled since fiscal year 19. This lines up with the nationwide trend of increasing digital circulation. Some libraries are seeing so much growth in this area that their digital checkouts surpass their physical checkouts. This is not happening at JCLS yet, but we should keep in mind where this steady growth may lead in the upcoming decade. Next slide, please. This chart further illustrates how digital circulation reached a new high. Hoopla circulation this year included over 91,000 checkouts by fiscal year end, while Overdrive included over 357,000 checkouts by fiscal year end. In fiscal year 24, around 2,600 patrons used Hoopla each month, around 5,700 patrons used Overdrive each month. Next slide, please. Thank you. Library visits increased in fiscal year 24 by over 130,000 visits.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is that counted by foot traffic sensors. I know in malls, they have little things that triangulate individual cell phones, which wouldn't, take into account folks who don't have cell phones or children who don't have cell phones. What is it? Is it?
It's a door count. So
We have
the
sensors
door,
at
the
every
the
entrance
door,
to every building.
yes.
And so it's
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
If you go in and out 5 times.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah, so this is a metric, I think that, I think over the time of this tracking is when we have, I think it was in 2019 or in calendar year 2020, when we installed our new doors, or we call them people counters, they're not counting the doors, we know how many doors we have, how many people are going through the doors. But we installed more sophisticated systems about 2020. And so this is a data point that back in the day when I was a librarian, it was hash marks on a piece of paper. Yeah, and so this has gotten more accurate over time, and this is something, even this year, they're like, hey, we can get even more granular and only count during certain hours of the day or whatever. And, so we're trying to keep it as consistent year to year so that the comparison is meaningful year to year. At the same time that technology is making it even easier to do. One of the nice things with this system was that when we closed and reopened and said only 100 people can be in this library, we could go to the Sensource unit and say, we're at capacity, sorry, you can't come in. And so we were able to monitor how many people were in the building and stay within.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There was a separate module that we actually enabled at that point during the pandemic that was able to alert staff to the capacity in the space. We no longer are using that module.
Next slide, please. Thank you. Over fiscal year 23, last year, we saw a trend of increasing library visits. In comparison, fiscal year 24 more so maintained the previous year's high across the months of the year, as illustrated by the trend lines.
Oh, and then the library visits would be another good one to have per capita year by year comparison as well.
And I've got that written down. Thank you. Okay. Fiscal year 24 has been a strong year for signing up new cardholders.
Biggest year yet.
Yes. Next slide, please. Note that the months in the second half of fiscal year 24 consistently performed higher than the respective months from the previous fiscal years.
We used to have as a BHAG goal to have active cardholders up to 75% of the population of Jackson County. Correct. And we don't do that anymore. But I'd be curious to know where we are.
That is something that we report in the annual statistical report, so that is something you should see as we prepare the state statistics. Okay. We have not forgotten it, but we had chosen this as the KPI, these as the KPIs for the past, for this current strategic plan, excuse me. Yeah.
And next slide, please.
Oh, and as a
Oh,
reminder,
sorry.
I always like to remind everybody that in September and January, those coincide with the RCC.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
That what it is. I have a note on here to ask about why we have bumps.
Yep, those are
I mean,
the
it's
starts of their,
clear.
it is.
So, and it's also tied to our school, I mean.
Sure,
Well,
yeah,
all
I
schools
assume that-
starting,
that
yeah,
kids-
but particularly the RCC does.
the RCC enrollment, period.
But we don't share with our CC anymore though.
We do, we share the catalog with RCC.
Oh, they're, okay,
Yes.
so they're still in co-op, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So our statistics reflect our
Circulation of
cardholders?
only. Yes, who are JCLS cardholders, so it does not include the Grants House campus, so only,
They are signing up
yeah.
library card holders who are Jackson County residents and giving them a Jackson County library card.
With RCC privileges. Yeah. And again, that statistic is being counted the same way it's been counted throughout the partnership. Pre and post them being physically in this space, the way they've shared the catalog has remained the same. And there were some of the conversations we've had is about whether the circulation goes with the owner of the book or the, you know, the owning location of the book or the identity of the person who checks it out. And I don't remember the answer off the top of my head, but we've worked out doing it consistently, both for state statistical reporting and for the internal or for the interim reports we do.
Right, because an RCC student who doesn't live in Jackson County could still get an RCC card and benefit from a Jackson County library material.
Fiscal year 24 saw a 25% increase in computer sessions in comparison to the last year. The increase is most driven by Medford, Ashland, and Talent branches. However, Eagle Point and Rogue River also saw over 1,000 additional computer sessions this year in comparison to last year. Remember that Medford and Ashland house the most public PCs and also offer a 7-day per week service. JCLS public computer use levels have not yet reached pre-pandemic levels.
However, this is another place where the national trend is for a decrease in computer usage, that the whole BYOD, bring your own device. You know, so for us to continue to see increases is actually really significant, I think.
What about use of Wi-Fi?
Well, are you just trying to? It's fine. Or did we take it out?
Wi-Fi, there was
Oh, yeah, we did pull that out. Well, so
It's coming in October. You'll see.
it's coming in, we had it in the original and it's not, Marissa, like, wasn't statistically relevant, I think. So we said, because.
Yeah, there was,
one,
yeah, too much confusion with employees and everybody signing in and out multiple times. So, yeah, we determined it really didn't give us, you know, enough information that was relevant to be an informative KPI, really.
So, right.
But it's over 2 million, right?
The one piece that I'd be interested in is after hours.
Same.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Where people are sitting outside the libraries using our Wi-Fi.
Hour by hour would be really interesting, actually, yeah.
And that's a challenge to get,
Yeah.
but we can try.
Well,
We've looked at it.
Well, and it is something that we have reported,
Mhm.
before, you know, during and after library usage, and the trend that we saw with when we were closed during the pandemic, Wi-Fi usage reflected that people were not coming in. No, it actually went down because a lot more people do come in while we're open and their devices connect to Wi-Fi. So when we're not open, there are, yes, maybe more people coming outside our building to use Wi-Fi, but it's actually fewer people overall because a lot of people come in the library and take advantage of our Wi-Fi.
That makes
Mhm.
sense, because
Yeah,
I don't
because
think
when
about the fact that my phone logs it.
Every single time.
every time you walk in.
Or you better make sure it does if it.
And so I remember looking at this as we came out of the pandemic to say, but why isn't our Wi-Fi higher now that we're closed? And it's like, oh, no, because I only come in with one device most days now, but you know, somebody could come in with 3 devices that are automatically connecting, or they're coming in with their laptop to use our Wi-Fi. You know, we see times when power outages at your home, you come to the library because we have, or internet outages, but it's not enough to bump above when we're open, how many people use it, so, yeah. So it was I guess my point is, it was a more meaningful statistic when we were closed and we were trying to demonstrate how valuable Wi-Fi was when nothing else was available.
Okay, next slide, please. In summary, fiscal year 24 shows an increase across every category. In the orange section, you can see the KPI values from fiscal year 23. In green, the KPI values from fiscal year 24. In yellow, how much the KPI increased by. Finally, in blue, we see the relative change between the 2 fiscal years for each KPI. A year-over-year KPI increase of 3 to 5% would be something any business would celebrate. Here, we're seeing higher increases. We're seeing more circulation, more library visits, more new card holders, and more computer use than last year. JCLS is taking a big step forward.
What is KPI? I don't think I.
Key performance
Key
indicator.
performance, I got
It was on the first slide.
Didn't read it.
it. I'm leaving. I actually do have to go to a meeting. Duck out if that's okay, yes. Thank you for your summary.
Oh, yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. Next slide, please. During our statistics committee meeting on Wednesday, August 7th, we discussed how viewing KPIs per capita could be used as a tool to provide context and tell our JCLS story. Here we see each KPI value per capita or per person. In other words, if JCLS's total circulation were to be split equally between each person in Jackson County, how much circulation would each one of those individuals have? They would have over 8 checkouts per person. Similarly, if all of our physical circulation was split up per person, we would have almost 6 physical checkouts per person. For digital circulation, 2 checkouts per person. For library visits, 3 per person. Notice that for new cardholders and computer use, the per capita result is under 1. This is because the value in fiscal year 24 for these 2 metrics is less than the population value, and thinking of each person as getting part of a new library card or part of a computer session is awkward to imagine. Luckily, there is another way of thinking about this result. We can think of the result as a percent of the population. For example, if we matched each computer session from fiscal year 24 to one distinct individual in the community, we would get through 34% of the Jackson County population before we would have no more computer sessions to assign. For new cardholders, 11,417 signups represents 5% of the Jackson County population. In other words, we can estimate that around 1 out of every 20 people in Jackson County was a new JCLS cardholder in fiscal year 24.
Pretty cool. And I know this is where, when y'all were earlier referencing that data year over year, is something that you'd be interested in. That is something we can certainly analyze and bring back to you.
Okay. There's a whole part 2, but if you gotta go, you gotta go.
I do this.
Okay, here we go. All right. So this is the strategic plan metrics, the SPMs. And again, this is based on our strategic plan, and these metrics were developed specifically related to it. Okay, starting off with the Spanish collection. This was chosen because it really aligns with 3 of our strategic plan goals. Goal 1, to energize library services and resources and improving and enhancing our collection, which is strategy 1. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do we have Chinese or Korean? If not here, then online.
There might be tiny collections physically, probably not very significant, and some of our online resources do have, I'm
We have
thinking.
Chinese and Korean stuff.
Right, I'm thinking that Hoopla might have something for you. Goal 2, extending access to the library, and strategy 3 in that wants us to expand offerings to non-English speakers, particularly Spanish speakers. And goal number 3, which was to engage the community more fully, again, really highlighting our Spanish-speaking population becoming more welcoming. So that's why we chose this one. The reason for the increase is really it's a wonderful increase in our Spanish collection. The collection development, we have a collection development department now. We have dedicated selectors with a dedicated Spanish materials budget, and they are spending it. And they actually had a wonderful strategy to their selection over the past year, where they took a look at the usage across all libraries and identified, everybody has a Spanish collection across all the 15 branches, but 5 of them, they saw the highest use. And so they really focused on putting more new materials in those 5 locations, which are Ashland, Medford, Central Point, Phoenix, and White City. So
Didn't we also do a special Spanish?
we did, so I think you're
Development.
referring.
I can't remember. the
Yep,
name of
and
it, but-
it's books,
Next.
Libros for Oregon, thank you. So the last 2 years we've done that, which is a
Right, which would be, so 23 is included in the last. year,
Yes,
so-
correct.
However, I think that it was late in fiscal year 23 that we started
it didn't
getting those
really-
books,
it didn't
so
really-
yeah.
I figured that was one of the reasons for the big bump in.
Yeah.
24.
I'm sure it certainly. Okay, next. We have the Library of Things checkouts.
This is what Kevin was waiting for now.
Yes, all right, so again, this relates to our energizing library services, and specifically called out in the strategic plan was emphasis on the Library of Things. So in FY 24, it's a little bit less, however, a lot of new additions were added to the collection. I actually have a list from the collection development team of all the things that were added this past fiscal year. 3 radon detectors. So they added a whole bunch of new things. It's really great to see the collection holding steady and moving forward. And there is going to be some exciting news coming October.
You can tell us.
Tell you?
Yeah.
We're going to be moving away from the software My Turn. That is currently the external software that we use for the handling of the library of things and the book club bags. And both of those things are going to be folded into Koha. So you'll be able to place holds like normal and be able to get materials. I think it'll really, really increase the accessibility of
And
that
learning.
collection.
And the discoverability.
And the discoverability, yeah, that's gonna be really great. And then the book club bags, particularly because of some developments in Koha, it has a new reservation module. It's only available on the staff side, not the public side. So book club bag users there'll be a whole new workflow where they'll be able to request the bags for staff members, and staff members will be able to reserve it for them for the specific time they like. And all that's gonna be coming soon.
Just a question on that, will it be able to have flexible kind of checkout times, because for some of those items, you don't need a performance, and yet you can't get them because everyone has to reserve them 6 months out. Photo scanner, some of the cooking.
Well, the difference is now, again, more information is gonna be coming. The team is working really hard to get all of this going. It's gonna happen like a regular hold. So if there's a lot of people waiting, you're gonna have to wait until it's available.
He's asking about the period.
The loan periods?
Right, so when people return it, then it'll become immediately available.
Oh, correct. And if you have a hold on that item,
Right,
it'll go directly to you.
because now you can,
Mhm,
okay, good.
correct, yeah. It'll flow just like the rest of our materials.
I'm leaving.
All right, see ya. Okay. Next, yeah. Okay, this is the comparison where we saw earlier the physical and the digital checkouts. This is just the comparison of the physical and digital. It relates to the KPIs, just to kind of show you what the balance is. And the following slide also, over time, shows again that increase. Digital is inching its way up in usage. Okay, shifting gears over to library programs. So this one relates to the goal 1, to energize library services and resources. Strategy 2, diversifying and increasing our programming and events. The number of programs has increased across all age groups. There's more programs and attendance, and possibly as a result of the increased hours at most branches. This is especially true at the Butte Falls location. And here's the attendance slide. As you can see, compared by age group, attendance is up across all age groups. This is a new slide. This is the average program attendance. So again, Regina took the program attendance and created an average across the whole year by audience, just to get an idea of how many teens are typically going to a program and in the past 3 years. So, or pre-K or et cetera, et cetera. So that's a new way to look at the program attendance to get an idea of the average.
And I think this is also important to note that more doesn't always mean better at some certain point, like having too many people at your program detracts from the value of it. And so this is a mix of, of maybe there's a heavily attended program and there may be another one that only 2 people attend. So it is still an average, and that's, you're always gonna have outliers.
Of course.
75 toddlers in a room.
Yeah. And again, this is another thing that's being looked at by that program, the POP task force, that's really taking a deep dive into how we do our programs.
Windows in Time is a library program.
Yes, it's
Just so, is that pretty unique in terms of being a regular program where lots of adults show up?
It is one of our more
So
popular ones.
it would sort of skew the average for
adults.
Possibly, but there's 3 different sessions of it. I think we counted it as at least 2 because there's an Ashland Anna Medford, and there's the online.
Some of the outliers were the parties, like if it's a celebration and there's hundreds of people
We have parties.
that come. You went to one anniversary, right? So, when we have those.
So that it would be included in. as a
Not in this one, just because it's,
program? Because it's now
it would
25.
be in fiscal year 25, but, events like that,
Are-
have those really, if they have that really high attendance, then it does pull that average in that way. But, so some people, say if they're seeing that too much or people are concerned about that, then we can also look at the median.
And I think, the POP force will be, task force will be looking more at that detail and looking at, taking out the highs and lows to get a more true average.
Yeah, we had like 96 people at Donut Day in the Eagle Point.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy and sweet, and
There's a national donut band.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
So there's Donut Day, Ice Cream Day, and Cupcake Day, so June, July, and August.
how about
Pie Day?
Hey, you're right.
We've done things for Pi Day too.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting over to outreach this time. Again, engaging the community more fully is the goal and the plan, the strategic plan that this relates to, and to increase outreach and community partnerships. There were more K-12 visits and interactions. New for this year in FY '24, the outreach team developed service agreements that clearly state the role and responsibilities of library staff and school staff for those visits. Education services team and branch staff worked with teachers across the county throughout the year to bring student groups to the library and also to bring library services to the schools. So all that's counted here. And also there was a huge effort, a big effort to attend as many kinder launches, which is a new to me word, as possible during the months of April and May. And that's like an orientation for families.
so you're gonna have kids that are gonna start.
Starting kindergarten, yeah, so getting in front of those families, has been.
And this again is the place where we have an interaction where you may be visiting a classroom of 15 and having a more in-depth, longer interaction versus attending a kinder lunch or a literacy night where you may interact with 150 families and sign up 20 people with a library card versus only talking to 20 at the other event. Both are super valuable to us, and it's hard to condense that into one number to tell all of that story.
Logistical question, when it comes to that sort of outreach, the folks going into schools, are they subject to another background check or the background check completed by the library is sufficient?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't believe they have to go through a second background check. They come in as a professional, not as a volunteer. So
Because we already do a background check at the library.
Right.
Curious, thank you.
Okay, so that was the K-12 outreach focus. This one is on the outreach to childcare, and that's of course our service that goes out to the various childcare sites throughout the county. Visits and interactions are also up among that team. In fact, it grew so much, those story times, that they actually had to develop a wait list for the first time. And since demand was greater than the staff capacity. And
So the
volunteer
visitors
capacity.
are all story times.
So the visits is the number of sites they go to. I wrote this right. The visits are the number of sites that they would go to. The interactions are the attendance and the number of people they engage with.
So every time they go, they don't necessarily do a story time. So we have some outreach to childcare sites that we do a story time once a month. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks. But we also switch out materials and collections, and we have story time kits and bags that we deliver as well. So there's multiple components to that. This is an area where we have started, again, all this post-pandemic growth back. We have started reintroducing some volunteers who assist us with both the delivery and some of the story times at the outreach to childcare sites.
And they are going to be looking at expanding that in the coming.
Yes, and that will help us keep up with that.
With that demand. Okay. The next outreach focus is the DART van, the direct access to technology. So visits and interactions are slightly down, but we think that one of the primary factors influencing that happens to be that there was some Two former specialists with the Dart Van found new jobs in just November and December, so there were some vacancies throughout the winter months. And so then the new staff were onboarded in January, February. So there was a fewer visits and things happening over the winter. But otherwise, I think they're going strong. And then the focus on higher education. While the number of visits increased, interactions decreased, but the engagements this year were meaningful and relationship building. The outreach team is still trying to figure out how best to engage with college students and work with partners at SOU and RCC. Last year, it was predominantly traditional tabling. And then this year, it was a mix of both tabling and programs.
I want to note that in fiscal year 22, this number was flat. This is actually something that we have been able to start that engagement as a result of the strategic plan. And that was something that we heard from participants in the survey and from the, data that we gathered during the strategic planning process, like, oh, it'd be cool if we did more. And so glad to see that we're able to start doing that.
Okay. Now to the community resource referrals. This again relating to goal number 3 of the strategic plan to engage the community more fully. The full goal was to support inclusion and advancement of varied communities in Jackson County. And strategy 3 is to be welcome and inclusive. And the unhoused was identified as one population, although that's not all the people they serve.
So we don't have please bicycles on here.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
The
So,
bicycle giveaways that is reported in the director's report.
right,
I thought that was magnificent.
right. Yeah. We were just talking about the metrics today that they gather. But this is what we're working with today. And so you can see that the bus pass program is really, really popular and has really gone up. I did speak with Haley about this. So in FY23, we had a program that was really targeted at the veterans, and it was from RBTD, and there were 6 ride passes, and each pass for 6 rides counted as 1. That program has since been discontinued, but for FY24, JCLS received a mini donation is what it was called from RBTD. And Haley Courtney had reached out and spoke with RBTD and requested 3,600 bus tokens. And they said yes. And the reason they said yes is that they were really looking, and those are single ride bus tokens. And so those are distributed now across all 15 locations, which was attractive to RBTD. We still do offer the 6 ride passes, but we just have much fewer of them. And one of the other reasons, there were a couple of other reasons. We're near a transit hub, obviously here in Medford, and the point in time count that looked at the unhoused population, due to the number of people that were proximal to our area here at the library, that was another reason that they were really happy to give us so many passes, which has been really, really popular.
RBTD doesn't go near all our branches.
Correct.
They don't go to Prospect and you.
They don't go to all of our branches, but we do have bus passes available at all of them, but we do. And
Does it
we
go
do
out to
portion them out to more places where they.
Does it go out to like Applegate and Rouge? Doesn't, so it's the sort of the I-5 library,
Jacksonville.
mostly.
Yeah, mostly,
With some
mostly
of
the
the
I-5 corridor,
slot
and this
blocks.
is something that we've talked with them about as well, and I'm sure. A data point that they appreciate is if we do give out bus passes in areas where they don't have routes, we could be helping tell the story for New Need. I know that White City bus route was added within the last year, and I think Eagle Point had a new route within the last couple of years as well. So, we're helping.
Route in the last couple of years, they never had one at all, so.
Yeah, so we're helping them with that data gathering, and this is another fun area where but we have conversations on teams among staff who, like I had a patron come in Rogue River who's trying to get to California. Is there a way we can help them and getting them a bus pass to here to get to there or whatever. So it's been a really great network in a way that we've helped connect people in our community.
Absolutely. The other really big point that Haley shared with me that I want to make sure you all realize, because it was new to me, is that each of these numbers represents a success story. So it's not just an interaction. So some of our other metrics are an interaction or, you know, a touch point or whatever. This is actually someone who got the document they needed or received something or, you know, they are complete. I don't know, helping hands. I mean, so these are success stories. And so I think that's something to just note that that's what we're counting here. Are there questions or thoughts? I have a lot of notes. Okay, next. And this is our final slide on staff training and professional development. So this relates to goal 4 of the strategic plan to nurture the library's infrastructure. And the strategy is to support professional development, especially areas in technology, cross-department training, and community inclusion. So great. Numbers are up. It's great. I wanted to note that this is a self-reporting tool. So we think this is likely an underrepresentation of the amount of professional development that our staff are receiving. I did take a quick gander at some of the raw data to look at some of the top subject categories for training. Number 1 was emotional intelligence. Number 2, community outreach and engagement, followed by equity, diversity, and inclusion information, safety trainings, librarian skills, technology, practical skills and programming, leadership. So it's great to see all the wonderful options that folks have found. So. Okay, and I think the last one. Thank you very much.
One quick question. Sure. Lagging behind here. It's sort of staff day, since I mean, that is a pretty education intensive day and the majority of people are there. That must not be getting picked up here.
Correct. No, it's all, none of the required, yeah, it's not the
I
required
see.
training.
Okay.
It's all things people do
Okay.
on top of, the bloodborne pathogens.
So for librarians who are also public notaries, no notary public, right? Is that, I think they can choose to become that.
The
Unless
training
they-
to become a notary public, if they remember to report it, would get counted, but if not.
Because that's a lot too, that's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
You know this from experience?
From me not tackling it, I'll.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are on to committee reports, the policy committee. There's
Yes,
a lot
so
to add.
the Core United Policy Committee
Yes,
was
the-
whose board members
The
failed to
MIA
show up.
policy committee.
So we, as noted in the notes, Susan and Kevin both ended up with, scheduling conflicts, and so staff didn't do too much because we want the board input, but we did want to proceed with making sure that, from our end to spreading out when the policies reviews are happening, and also on your end, making sure that we're not bringing you 0 this month and 6 next month, trying to make sure that there was a regular schedule there. So we will, I believe we've shared that back out with you Susan already, but if not, I do have that to share with you all. And then the main bulk of what we covered in the meeting is the policies that were presented to you here today. So. Okay.
You will.
You will. I'll get it to you.
That's approved.
Okay, data and metrics committee, Marissa is still there. Good.
Yeah, so we mainly went over the data that we had gone over in that data meeting. And I think you already got the gist from my comments that I was interested in a lot of per capita metrics so we can kind of understand what direction we're going, especially as our population does increase. And I think we're just also trying to get an overall narrative, kind of where is our library going, especially as, again, we're trying to figure out our strategic planning over, the next 5-10 years, really. And any input from other board members would be appreciated, again, on our KPIs and anything else that we may have missed.
Thank you.
Note, I missed that meeting and I'm gonna chalk it up to being new to the committee scheduling. I'll make
That's
sure
how I
that
got
happening again.
screwed up on the other one.
Don't worry, we'll give you more chances.
No, oh,
Right, there will be another one.
well, there will be, and I wasn't new, but it was at a bad time.
Okay, the advocacy committee, actually, both board members were present at the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's with Martha and I, and we did get some background since both of us are new to the advocacy committee. So Carrie provided some background for us and we looked at the advocacy toolkit. That's a hard word to say. And we will be meeting again in October and hope to have a plan in place then. I mean, I think clearly we're looking at ways to utilize the other supports that are out there, Friends Foundation, identify ways that all of us in whatever large or small ways can serve as library champions, and that we identify and cultivate more of those in the community.
I think going back to what Marissa was saying about the data and metrics committee being interested in having, you know, what stories can we tell, what numbers can support the stories that we want to tell. And so I think it's great, Marta, that you actually sit on both, because I think you can bring some of those using data to tell stories to our advocacy committee to help put perhaps some figures with an impact story or something like that. And so as we're looking at this advocacy action plan, one of the, I guess, the challenges we threw out was that by the end of calendar year 2025, so by December 31st, 2025, we will have visited all of the city council meetings and got given either a formal presentation or taken our 3 minutes of public comment to speak with each of them and talk about library services as well as before the county commissioners. And one of the things we talked about perhaps being impactful in those presentations is for me to come with a member of the board. And so as we look at what the schedules are and when we might get on that agenda, we'll be sending out that opportunity for you all to be part of that.
Well, that's cool. It's also sort of, it might be an opportunity to say to these local governments, you know, they all had to opt in to be part of the district. That was, part of getting the district passed was going to each local government entity and saying, you need to get on this. And Joe County, and they don't have everybody, so, I mean, we're really lucky.
So we can thank them again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, thank you so much for.
Well, and then we can tell them what how they benefited from their opting in as opposed to opting out too.
Yeah, to add, we also talked about capturing a unique story about how library has reached a life of a local resident. So having a board member is great, but having that testimony handy. Storytelling is very, very crucial. And we've also talked about coming in with some data that reflects usage or something very unique about the library's offerings.
Right, and so, and Regina has recently developed our snapshots, both system-wide and branch specific, and so being able to utilize documents and infographics and dashboards that Regina puts together, so thank you, Regina, we're so glad you're here.
I'm sure we'll have.
Your last relationship committee.
Oh, well, we met just. I didn't know.
We met a week ago.
Right, we did. Well, we've got. Everybody was there. Our last meeting was May 1st. Phil Meyer and. Well.
Jenny and
Sue Collins-
Carrie.
Sue Collins
Yeah.
is the other board member from the foundation. Right. So we're working on, I think we've identified November 4th as a time for a joint meeting and we've gone through reading my notes inspired by the,
Was it November 4th?
I have,
You said?
I have summarized my notes if that would be helpful, Susan. In the meeting,
in the interest of time, that might be good.
so for that, yeah, so November 4th at 4 p.m. would be the joint board meeting between our two boards, and the committee, relationship committee, sketched out a tentative agenda for that meeting. Phil, Jenny, and myself all attended the International Public Library Fundraising Conference, which is the most long conference name I've been to in a while, but we all highlighted what we learned from that
It
conference.
seems like that's a really great place for library fundraising.
Yep.
To go to, and let me do just this one piece, because Ginny and Terry did a presentation program at that conference, and they're going to do it for most of it, or at least parts of it, for us at the joint meeting in November.
Including our stand-up comedy routine.
Right.
So November 4th, at what time? 4th, okay, it just goes in my calendar, just yet.
Okay. We're making sure we have all the RSVPs when it is actually the date, but it is 90%
It
certain.
must be very close.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I was going to ask Kevin.
So, but we'll find out. And we
Find something to do on the 4th.
we reviewed our charter and work plan for the relationship committee, and Susan, I just sent the corrections for that to you, or my notes from that to you today, so. Like literally 2 hours before the meeting, so, and then our next meeting is scheduled for September 30th. For the relationship committee, that is. You don't have to vote it all.
I think it's, as the foundation gets more and more effective, having the relationship committee, I think, will be better and better.
Okay. Got way too much paper. The United for Libraries virtual conference, I actually made some notes, but I would like to do it at a time where we're not kind of on our last breath and we're all here. If we could carry that to the next meeting. There was some valuable information that I think would be useful for us to consider. So it was good and easy to participate in. And I don't know do you know how long the recordings?
I believe it's 90 days past this conference. It's either 90 days or 6 months that the recordings are available.
Within 90 or after?
Within
Oh,
90 after they
they're
post it. So they
available
posted
now.
them on August 14th. They should be available for the next 90 days. And so
They've
we
got some
could
time.
actually give every, board member some homework and say, hey, if you want to watch some of the recordings between now and the next board meeting, and Vicky, maybe, and both Jenny and I attended some sessions too, be like, hey, if you only have time for 1 or 2, these are the ones we recommend. Be happy to share that information with you all of what we found impactful. I forgot.
Yeah, so it was interesting that the first session was on succession planning, and it was 2 consultants that we have
Right, yeah.
utilized before, so it was more Aditi and Stephanie Chase, so. Cool to see both of them, so. Anyway, if that's okay, yeah. Say we'll revisit it next month.
On November 4th for the joint meeting, 4 p.m. was like the only time that I'm double booked that day, but I'll clear it all out.
Would 5 o'clock work better for you?
No, I haven't had a booking. Like 4 to 6 is when I'm double booked for 2 things and I shared my calendar. So just heads up, I'll clear them if need be, but.
Thank you.
And then, one last thing, can we do a study session on the water feature at Medford and maybe just get some context of Miraz Group, how much was invested initially, and then like I don't know if you have this, but it'd be nice to know maintenance history, like, what's kind of been going on over its lifetime. It'd be nice to just have better context, again, especially as we try to figure out how to improve our libraries.
So it is on the agenda for the facilities committee meeting next week. And so, that is something I would recommend that is remanded, the right word, referred to the facilities committee for that further investigation, before it comes back to the full board.
What time is the meeting? What time is the facilities committee?
Facilities committee meeting
4
is
p.m. on Monday.
4 p.m. on Monday, and that is Vicky and
Kevin.
Kevin. So it is a subcommittee of the full board.
Gotcha. Thank you. Is there anything preventing additional board members such as board member Shepherd and myself from showing up, like running into quorum issues?
We would,
Yeah.
we would have to post it as a public
Notice
meeting.
it.
We can do that,
Okay.
but that, we would need to know in advance if you would like to attend as well.
Gotcha.
You won't mess it up. I mean, we have plenty of time to notice it. We would just need to notice it by Friday if you all do want to come.
I mean, I think I would like to sit in if that's not a problem with the court.
Okay,
4 p.m.
4 p.m. on Monday, August 26th. Okay.
And we'll be in this room.
Okay. And I'll reach out to Kevin and see if he wants to join as well, and we'll just go ahead and notice that as a public meeting. Okay.
Okay, I think that's all the business there is.
So I just want to add one opportunity, since we were talking about more engagement. The Medford Jackson Chamber of Commerce has their annual awards dinner. And just a reminder, we did win an award from them in 2019 as one of the Star of Excellence award from them. It is at the Rogue X on Thursday, September 12th at 6 p.m. If any board members would like to join me, I am planning to attend that. And I'm not looking for a plus one. I can go by myself, but if any of y'all would like to go and represent the library at that.
Do you want us to come?
I think it's always good to have a presence.
Show up.
So they're the biggest.
When is it?
The Thursday, September 12th. I can send out information about that as well.
I'm hoping to be traveling, but if I'm not, I'll be there.
But it is a ticketed event, so we do need to buy tickets ahead of time, so, yeah. Okay.
Meetings adjourned.